In this video, I'm going to introduce you to using layers in Pinta. Again, this is an introductory course. My last video on Pinta was resizing an image and resizing your canvas, and that's something you need to know how to do in order to use layers. All right, if you found this video on YouTube, I will provide a link below that shows you the screen of Pinta. And here is your layers window, and you have to understand the features of the layers window. And when you're working with layers, you have shortcut keys, and you can go through the menu, and a lot of the features that are up in the upper portion of your menu are on the actual layers window. You'll have little buttons, and I'll show you those in a moment if you can't see them on the image. Now, one thing you need to know about working with layers: when you work with layers, you're going to see multiple images or multiple blank documents if they appear over here. If they don't have anything in them yet, those are your layers that you're working with. And it works from like looking at the top of stacked transparent sheets of paper, or opaque sheets of paper. And opaque means that you can't see through it. Transparent, you can. So if you look here, it works like stacked layers, and you're looking at it from above, like you're looking through them. In the images that I'm going to work with in just a few moments, I'm going to be taking a picture of a chair that I found on the internet, and I'm going to take a picture of my 6th grade classroom, and I'm going to take that chair and put it on the floor so that it looks like that chair that I found on the internet was actually in my classroom. And this is what your layers window will look like. You'll have a chair, you have a room, and the names of those, I'll show you how to change those in just a few moments. And I'll show you the check boxes, what they're for, and the features that are on them. But instead of going back to this video as a reference, if you bookmark my website, I do have going through here showing you how to change. I show you the layers window. I mark everything showing you exactly what they are. Like in this layers window up here, number 1 is your title bar, which says it's the layers. It shows you the layers that you have here. And on the layers, you have your auto hide button, which is the little underscore, and then you have your close or hide button. When you close it, it goes in hide mode. You can bring it back through the menu that you can give more real estate on your Pinta window. Then your second button, which is here, is your add new layer button. So if I click this button, it'll add me another layer in my window. The next, number 3, is your delete a layer. So if you've got a picture or an image that you've messed up, or a layer that you've messed up, you select it by making sure that it's highlighted, and then you hit this button and it will delete it. So that is your delete layer. This is a duplicate layer button, and before the end of this video, I'll show you the reason why you would want to duplicate a layer, so that you got 2 layers identical. So that if you want to make another layer identical, you select the one that you want to duplicate, you click this button, and it will duplicate it. Number 5 here is your merge layer down. Now, when you're working with multiple layers, you have to save them as one image. You just can't go through here with multiple layers and go file save as and save it as one image. It will save the selected image and it will ignore the rest. So you have to merge them, and it merges from the top down. So my chair would be the top one, and it merges below. So that is your merge layer down. Now if you want to change the order of these, like in this case, this is dim. It's because I'm at the top. I can't move up. So in this case, I can click this button and it will move my chair image down. And if I wanted to select here, I click on room and I can move that one up. So here you can see properties dialog box, and I'll show you all this in just a moment. Let's say, for example, I need more information about this image. I can double click on it. A properties dialog box come up, allowing you to rename that image, because sometimes you might get images from your camera, or you download an image from the internet, and it might say like image 001, or have some random name. And to help you identify, especially when you're working with multiple layers, you want to name that layer so that when you look at the name, if it's something small, you'll know what the image or the layer is. And that you can change in your properties dialog box, your layers property dialog box. Now your visible button, when you click on these, that makes it visible within your Pinta window. Now when you got your layers dialog box, clicking that basically is the same as clicking that button in your layers window. Now the blend modes, I won't go about that since this is an introductory course, but later I'll go over the different modes. There's 14 different modes. The normal is by default. Changing your opacity, pulling it all the way down to 0 will make your image transparent, means you can see clearly through it. 50%, halfway between opaque and transparent. 100% you can't see through it, it's opaque. So you can adjust the opacity of a layer by dragging the slider bar or by increasing and decreasing the opacity. Now it's currently at the maximum, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Now your layers menu. In the layers menu, it's got the same as these here at the top. So I really don't have to describe the add a new layer. It's the same as the add a new layer button. Same thing with the delete layer, duplicate layer, and merge layer down. Now here's where it differs. This is where you import a file into your layers window. If you're new to using Pinta, and when I first started using Pinta, I would go file open, and what would happen was in my Pinta window, every time I opened a new image, this is the images that you're open. You can switch back and forth, but that's not your layers. You need to add a layer here or an image in your layer, and that's what you do through your menu. You could add another layer. Let me scroll down, and then I'll show you in just a moment. You can say import from file. By clicking on that, it looks like you're clicking your open button. It looks like you're going up here and hitting file open or clicking the open button, but the only difference is it'll open up, allowing you to add an image in your layers window or your layers section here within the layers window. Instead of hitting file open, it adds it here where you can switch backwards and forth between images. Now sometimes you might want to tweak and modify an image and then later save it and then go and import that into a layer. So that's why you have your two different sections of your screen. Now going back down here, you've got other features that you can flip your image horizontally, the selected image or layer horizontally. You can flip it vertically, you can rotate or zoom, and you can look at the properties like double clicking on it. Now, since we understand a little bit about the menus and the layers window, like I said, I'll bookmark this where you can refer through it. Now, before I get started on the video portion of showing you how to use it, again, I'm going to take this picture and this picture of a chair, and I'm going to place it to where it looks like here. And I'm going to show you the steps, the illustrated steps, and I explain what's happening in each of the steps. And so when you're finished, you're going to go through here, and it looks kind of crazy looking at the images now, but when you get your finished product and you save it, it's going to look something like this. And it's something that was done quickly. And that's why I chose a simple chair, so that it's not something complicated. Now, the more you use it, the better you'll get at it, and so that you'll be able to do some more advanced features instead of one little simple chair. So let's bring up Pinta, or bring up my images and put them, and I'll start here with working with layers. Let me minimize my web browser. I'm going to go into my folder where I have my images. It's under Pictures, Pinta, and I'm going to be working with the chair, which is here, and my classroom. And I deliberately made sure that I had a number here instead of the name room, so I can show you how to rename it. Now I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to hit open with Pinta. Now I could have went through my menu and went open Pinta and then went file open, and that would have done the same thing. Now you remember you can check your image size and canvas size, and they should be the same here. Where it's got resize my canvas, if you look, it's 1280 by 960. I'm not going to resize it. I'm going to leave it the same. And if I were to go up here and show you the resize my image, it's the same as my canvas size. Now, if I were to increase the canvas size, it would not increase the image. It would make it look kind of transparent or have the little gray and white hash marks, which means transparent. And if I decrease my canvas size, it would appear that my image is cropped. Now with Pinta, there's kind of a flaw that if you're trying to work with a very large image, my first image that I had for my camera was over 4,000 and my height was a couple thousand. And when I would start to work and manipulate, when it would go to save it or change the altercations, sometimes it would crash. So you want to reduce your width within 1,000 or less, and then later when you finish with it, you can increase the size, but not too much, because you don't want to work with a small image and increase it where it looks very distorted. But that's one of the flaws that I saw with Pinta, is working with large images. It kind of crashes from time to time. But now here's one layer. Let's go and look here where we got our add new layer. If I click this button, it's going to make this layer 2. Now remember, the layers are in a particular order, and it matters the order of your layers. The top layer will be the layer that use your main layer. It's the one that's kind of like the one that you'll be looking through. So when I go in up here in my layers menu, I'm going to say import from a file. I'm going to go to my, here's my pictures, Pinta. I'm going to import the chair. Now notice here, I've got an image loaded here, but when I open the chair up, it's not going to add it to my open images. It's just going to add it to an open layer because I'm importing it in my layers window. So let me hit open, and immediately when I do, it puts it at the top of the stack. And here we have the window that we first originally noticed. I'm not looking at this one. Remember, it's like looking through a stack of transparent papers. In this case, the top image is not transparent. This one is. When you see those little hash marks, that means it's completely transparent. Here you got white, which is opaque, and you got a brown chair with silver or chrome legs with little black stops at the bottom. So you can't see this image. Even if I select it, you can't see this image. So if I wanted to work with this and then the layers, I would simply uncheck these, and now I can view this one. Means that I'm looking through the stack, but these are like no longer in the stack. They are here, but when I go back and select them, since that's transparent, you're looking through that layer. When I go back here, you can't see layer 2, you can't see layer 3, because this is the top of the stack of layers, or images in my layers. Now notice here, I really don't need layer 2, so that takes me to this button. Here's to add a new layer, here is a delete a layer. I don't want to delete my chair, and I don't want to delete my classroom, so I can click delete layer, and it removes the transparent layer in that stack. It wouldn't hurt to leave it because it's transparent. You can see through it. But in this case, I just want to work with those two images. Now here is to duplicate a layer. So if I wanted to duplicate that classroom, I could come here and I've got a copy of it. It places it ahead of it. Now if I wanted to move this down, since they're identical the same, it doesn't matter. Here I could move my copy up. In this case, now you can see this one. You can't see the chair because this is the top of the stack. Now with it selected, I can no longer move up since I'm at the top, but I can move it down. Each time you press this, this moves the selected layer or the selected image down. This moves the selected image each time you press up. Now I don't really care for the extra copy of this image, so I will delete it. Now in this case, when you double click a layer or double click an image in the layer stack, when you double click it, your layers property dialog box will appear. In this case, it will allow you to change the name of the image in that layer. Now I do like chair because that is a great description of what the image is. Now notice the checks that I have in the box. Remember a while ago when I unchecked, it's like we're no longer looking through that layer. We've disabled it from the appearance in the stack. It's still there, but we can't see it. So when I check it here, when I go back here, this little visible check box, and that's basically what that is, a visible check box. When I uncheck it, notice it unchecks here. So this little box is basically that little box. Now the blend modes, I will not get into the blend modes. There's 14 of them, and that's more of advanced, so I won't get into the blend modes of the properties of a layer. That's in a future video. But the opacity here, when you got it 100%, it's completely opaque, meaning you can't see through it, and 0 means it's 100% viewable, transparent. I know that sounds funny when I went from 100% to 0. It's 100% transparent. It means 0 opacity, because opaque means you can't see through it. And then when you go about halfway, as you begin to slide the slider bar, it becomes more and more opaque. And when you get to about the center point, it's about halfway see-through and halfway that you can't. So I'm going to leave it at 100 for now because I want the chair completely visible when I go and merge it in my classroom image. So I'm going to hit, I can hit OK here or cancel, and it will keep the same. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. Now the key thing here is this image has a number instead of a name. So if I double click, it brings up my layer properties dialog box. I can select, and make sure you don't rename your extension on the right hand side of your period. That's your extension indicating that it's a JPEG file. Now if I wanted to work and save the transparency, I would have to save it as a PNG file. PNG file is the only image format that I know of that will save transparency images where you can see through it. So if you're working on a website, you want to put an image on your website, but you don't want to see around the image, make around your image transparent, save it as a PNG file, and put it on your website. Now I'm going to rename this particular picture I'm going to change it from 031. I'm going to call it room because it was my science classroom, my 6th grade science classroom. I'm going to hit OK. Now, when I hit OK, it don't immediately change. It immediately changes as I type. So see, if I'm hitting backspace as I type, it changes the name here. But when I hit OK, it basically locks that name into that layer. Now, what I want to do now is I want to take this image here. Now, here's a key mistakes, or a common mistake with people that are learning to use Pinta. Like if I wanted to make because the top layer is the visible layer at all times, unless you uncheck it. Even if I've got room selected, when I go to mark here, notice the marking tool is the default, the paintbrush, and it's at number 2. Let's say I want to put it to like 12 or 11, and I want to put a line here. Notice nothing's happening. I am drawing a line. I'm drawing it on the selected image, room. But remember, we're looking through from the top. That's opaque. So if I uncheck here, there's my line. So you have to be very careful that, remember, if you're wanting to work with an image, lower on your stack, deselect the images over here, your visible image. So that way you're not making changes to the image underneath. Because when you go to merge them, if I went to merge that would look funny. It looked like a piece of black yarn or string blew in front of the camera when I took the picture. So I simply undo, and it just took me from what I just did. Let me keep undoing until the pictures now. It undid my name. Went too far back. Now, when I go here, uncheck, I don't have the black line. So this is a mistake, and I still do it. So it's not just a rookie mistake. Veteran people that uses layers sometime will accidentally leave this check, click here, and think they're working on this one, think, well, where in the world is my editing features that I'm doing to my image? And it's not showing because you've got it, the image is above what you're editing selected. So that's the purpose of those boxes here. Now here I want to go and actually work with the chair. So I'm going to click on chair, and I'm going to uncheck room, and I'm going to go up to chairs. So that way I've got chair selected. The selected layer is the image that you're working with. So always make it a habit. If you're learning Pinta, if you make it a habit when you're working with an image over here, always make sure that you look over here to see that you have the selected image that's viewable here, because that's the image that's going to be editable, the one that is selected. Now here I want to make white transparent. To do that, if you remember back from my first video when I went through and explained what all the features of the buttons on the toolbar is, here we have a magic wand. Now here's the tolerance, like 0. If I click here, it's only going to select a dot. If I drag it all the way to 100, like opacity, it's going to select everything on the image. If I played with it a while, and I've learned, and this is something you get used to, if I'm not mistaken, I think around 60 allows me to check everything or select all the white in the background. I'm having trouble with the slider here. Let me see if my arrow key, there we go. I can bump my arrow keys. Now, the 60 is where I played with, where when I click the area here, it's going to select everything with that color. So the white background, when I click, it now selected everything. The chair, you can see, has a little dotted outline because it's not selected that. It just selected the background. So that way, I've seen videos before where someone says remove an image. They go click the eraser, go make the eraser large, and they're sitting there erasing a whole background. That works. It's time consuming. If you click the magic wand, adjust your tolerance, then now I can press the delete button, and it gets rid of everything that's selected. That's what the green was. It was a selection. Now the little checkered board that you see here, that means that it's transparent. Now if I were to save the transparent, it wouldn't be transparent here because I'm working with a JPEG image. I would have to change the extension to a PNG. If I wanted to put like this on my website, didn't want to see these checkerboards, I would save it as a PNG. I could call it chair.png, and it would save it. But now if I go back and click here, we're looking through. I know it has a milky image, but that's because it's showing me my layers, and in a few moments that will disappear. But I do want to leave this check now. I want to go back and select this one, because if I leave this one selected, when I go to work, it's going to alter the picture that's selected here. I'm going to go back to chair, because if you look, the chair's in the classroom, but it looks like the leg is going through or hitting the edge of the cabinet. So I want to move the chair. So if you remember back to my toolbar, video where I illustrate all the tools on the toolbar, this is my rectangle select. So I want to select this chair. So I'm going to go above it. Everything, remember, is transparent around it. I'm not working with the image below it. So I'm going to make sure I get the image. Notice when I start to work with this, the little gray part kind of disappears. I'm completely getting all around it, so I select the entire chair. Now there's two types of moves: move selected pixels and move selection. If I choose move selection, it's only going to move the selected box and not the image. Here I want to move the selected pixels. So I click on the image that I want to move, and notice I'm not moving the image behind it. I can put the chair up in the air, make it look like a ghost is floating around. I can put it on the table. I can make it look, I can go up here to near the skull, or I can put it close to our owl pellet dissection, where we had the students to glue the bones on an image and put them on the wall. But instead I'm going to put it on the floor. That's where a chair goes. And I'm going to put it about here, like if the students were sitting looking at the plants because they're attracted to the sun from the window, which is over here. So now that looks good. Now if I were to go and hit File, Save As, it's not going to save it on this image. You have to use this feature right here called Merge Layer Down, so that it will take this layer and merge it with this layer to make one image. Always make sure that you got the layer above selected, because if I click this one, Merge Layer Down, it actually shouldn't even be highlighted. It's not, because there's no layer below it. So when I go up here and click Chair, I select my Merge Layer Down button. It now merges the two into one image. So when I save this picture, when I go to File, Save As, and I'm in my Pinta folder, I'm not going to call it 031 or it will overwrite. I'm not going to call it Chair. I'll just call this one Class, since I got one called Room. And when I hit the Save button, it's going to save it as a JPEG file. Now, if I wanted to just save that one image and leave the transparency, I would choose the PNG file. But I'm going to leave it at JPEG. I'm going to hit Save. And here's where you adjust the quality. If you don't want to decrease in any in size, 85%, you're not going to notice any difference in the quality. If you pull it up to 100%, the file size will be larger. So by default, it shows you 85. Hit OK. Now I'm going to close Pinta because I've already merged my files. There was my original file that I had. Here's the file that I merged with, which was the chair. Now here's the result of working with layers, where I took the classroom and I took the chair. I deleted the white background, then the chair was a little high, I moved it down, I merged them together, and here's the outcome. So if I were to put this on a website of a picture of a classroom, just by looking at it, it might look like the lights are not hitting properly, but the lights are fluorescent, and then you can see fluorescent lights in the chair, so it looks pretty natural. And that didn't take very long. You know, it kind of took some time because I explained it. But if I were to go through here and do this, you can do it in just a few seconds by taking two images and merging them together. So that's where layers becomes in handy when working with Pinta. Now, let me show you one other thing, feature that I didn't show you while ago. Let me open up a little girl playing in the field pulling flowers up in Pinta. And I'll show you another feature that I didn't show you with those two images. This is a public domain, which means you can use it without violating any copyrights. Now here, instead of adding a new image, I'm going to duplicate this one. I got a top layer, and I'm going to duplicate it here with a bottom layer. Now my bottom layer is what I'm working with, so I'm going to go and select my top one. I got two identical copies. I'm going to work with the bottom layer. So, or actually I'm going to work with the top layer. I'm going to unselect this one, go back to my top layer, and select just the top layer. Now what I want to do with this image, I want to go to Adjustments, and I know I haven't went over the effects, and that's going to be a future video, and also with the adjustments, but this one I think is pretty simple, self-explanatory. I'm going to turn a colored image into a black and white image. So when I choose the black and white feature or command within the adjustments menu, it's going to automatically change this colored image into a black and white image. Now I'm going to go and select the image below. Now they're all identical the same, they're duplicates. But I'm going to go back here and select this one again. Now you can see the black and white. Now that's that feature right here where you duplicate. Like for example, I've seen many pictures before where you take a black and white image, and if you want to highlight a color, instead of choosing a color here and paint it on a black and white picture, I can go and take my eraser, make sure the size is not too large, because remember the color on that little girl's hair is red and purple. So if I wanted just to highlight that, I can select the black and white image with my eraser. I can go in here and erase, and I can make it a little larger. It is small. And I can go in here, and with a little tedious work, and I'm trying to do it as quick as I can, you can highlight certain colors. Like if I had some pretty yellow flowers out in the field, and I wanted those yellow colors to show through, I could take my eraser and erase the black and white parts of the image. Because watch this, when I go and uncheck the colored picture, you're going to see the transparent. See that little transparent? That's where I erased it from the image by selecting the image below it. This helps you understand the stack. When you're looking at the stack, you're looking at it from the top down. So anything that you erase from the top, you're looking at it through it. So that's the purpose of having the transparency. When you're erasing for it, you're looking through and seeing on the image coming through below. So if I wanted to highlight some of the green in here, I can. Well, these right here is not very green. Oh, I'm on this one. I'm sorry. I need to go back and undo that because I selected, and that was told you that's a common error. So if I go back up here, now if I wanted to highlight or some of the green grass, I could start erasing some of this, and you can see some of the grass, the wild weeds that are growing, is highlighted as well. So if you're highlighting things in your image, letting color come through on a black and white image. Now before I save it, the key thing that you have to do, make sure that you're selecting the upper one. Come here where it says merge layer down. By doing that, you can come here and say file save as, give it a name where it says flower summer. I'm just going to call it flowers. Delete the word summer. And then when I hit the OK button, or the save button, and then the OK button, when I close out Pinta, go back to my folder, here was the original image where the little girl is colorful, and here's the image where we duplicated it. We made a black and white image. We erased parts of the gray so that the highlights of the colors come through on the black and white image. I've seen a lot of people in homes and across the internet where they have black images or black and white images, and they highlight with color. So instead of changing your image to black and white, going to your color palette and drawing colors in, that's very time consuming. Just duplicate your colored image, select your gray image, and erase the parts that you want viewable through the top image. Like I said, this is just an introductory. With Pinta and using layers, there's lots of things that you can do. Pinta is a very powerful image editor. You can create your own images with the tools that you have here, or you can open up images that you find across the internet or images that you take with your camera, and you can alter them or change them with Pinta. And like I said before, Pinta is just basically a clone of Paint.net. Pinta works on Linux, Mac, and Windows. So if you found this video on YouTube, you're not just stuck with Linux. You can download Pinta, but you also have the original version of Paint.net that you can install on Windows, on a Windows system. So hopefully this helped you get a little bit of understanding of what the layers window is, what the features are in your layers menu, and make sure that when you're working with your image that you select that layer, because if not, it's going to be making a change to an image below that you're not going to notice, and it will show up in your output when you go to save it. Hopefully this has helped you understand introductory or using layers, and have a great day.